So these questions here, like anytime you have, you're gonna sell stuff, right? Anytime you sell stuff, right? This is a very like conceptually like an easy concept, right? So if I'm gonna sell anything, it doesn't matter, t-shirts, like golf balls, whatever, right? Like the amount of money that I'm gonna make, the revenue, right? So forget about the question. I'm not even looking at the question yet. This is like true 100% of the time. If I'm gonna make revenue, it's gonna be like the number of something that I have, right? Whatever it is, right? A number of something, and then I'm going to multiply it by how much I'm selling that something for, right? That's how much money I'm going to have, right? So I'm going to multiply it by the dollars. Does that make sense? Very conceptually very easy, right? And if you use that, if you use this all the time, so this is how I attack all these questions, and then it turns out that they're all the same every single time, right? That's how we make money, right? So when you see like this question, an antique auto club has 300 members, so I see a number, right? The current yearly membership is $400. Okay, I see some money. But a survey shows that for every $20 increase in price, 10 members would drop out of the club, right? So I only see information about money, and I see information about numbers of things, right? Which is the case for all these questions. So the one thing that they're changing here, and this is kind of your let statement, you're going to say let X represent the number of price increases / decreases. This is a very generic one. It's not applicable, like it's applicable to this question, but in this question they're increasing the price. You could have a question that decreases the price, right? This is a very generic let statement, right? So these are the two things that this forms your whole like question for every single time. Every single time we do this, right? So let's write two statements that represent two pieces here, right? I'm going to write a statement about the number of something, and I'm going to write a statement about the dollars, right? Because in this question, they tell us information about both, right? So for the number, it tells me that there are 300 in total. 300. Doesn't matter. 300 dinosaurs, 300 golf balls, 300, doesn't matter, right? And then they're going to they say, if I increase the price by $20, right, 10 members are going to leave, right? So minus 10 for every price increase. What did I say price increases were? X. Right? Perfect. Now what happens? So let's look at the dollars. Right? So if I take the dollars, right, so I'm going to have, okay, well, how much does the membership cost right now? $400, right? And then the car club wants to increase it. So I'm increasing. I'm going to increase by $20. How many times do I increase the price? I don't know. So what did we say increase, what are we saying that as? X. Right? So now I could take this information that I just came up with, and I could throw it in here, right? I asked about, my revenue is the number of something I have, and I multiply it by how much I'm charging for it, right? So my revenue, right, is going to take the number 300 minus 10x, multiplied it by 400 plus 20x. Then I do the math on it, and you can choose to expand in any way that you want. In the past, you could do, we'll just keep it, I don't know how you guys expand. We're going to do this next week. We're just going to spend time working with stuff, and this is maybe my bad for doing this out of order, but you should have all seen this at some point. So I'm going to take first times the last there, and then I take the last times the first, and then the last times the last.
Is that called FOIL?
It's called FOIL, right? So another word for this is FOIL, right? which we'll do more of, and I'll show you a few different approaches to do this so that you never make a mistake ever again. If this is something you struggle with, so this is like firsts. This is next unit, yeah. We'll do a whole bunch of these. Outers, inners, lasts. Okay, we could also do, if you don't like this never fails, and I'm probably going to do everything that we do in this next little unit piece is going to go through this method, right? So if I drew a table here, right? In it, I'm going to put, or sorry, not in it. Along the outside, I'm going to go like this. 300, negative 10x. This is the approach I would use. Actually, it's the approach I teach now. I would have normally taught it with FOIL, but I really like this because it's so like same thing every time. It's very difficult to make a mistake. Then I take 400 plus 20x. Okay, and then to fill in the inside, this is what we call an area model, right? How do I find the area of anything? Length times width. I fill in the middle. So I multiply each piece and fill in the square. So in this square, I'm going to get the product of 300 times 400. That is going to be, oh, what is that going to be, 12,000? I don't know. Should have 4 zeros, so I bet you're right. I bet you it's 120,000. 4 zeros, right? Okay, let me rewrite that. Okay, and then 400 times negative 10x is going to be negative 4,000, right?
300 times 20x?
No, 400 times negative 10.
Oh, okay.
Should be 4,000, right? Negative 4,000, because the negative's here, right? And then 20 times 300 should be 6,000 x. And then 20 times negative 10 should be negative 200 x squared. Both methods work, right? I don't care how you do it, right? And we'll spend more time doing all of the next unit. But we're going to get an expression now, right? That looks like this. And I could start, I'm going to start in the bottom corner and just work my way. So the revenue is going to be negative 200 x squared. I'm just going to take all that stuff and write it in one line. Plus 6,000 x minus 4,000 x plus 120,000. This is a question, Hector. I don't know if you could probably do this to the table values, maybe.
Yeah, I guessed and got the right answer. So.
Well, there you go. Right? Now I'm just going to clean up the two middle terms. Negative 200 x squared plus 2,000 x plus 120. Okay, so that's your revenue. I could plug in like price increases, right? Plug in price increases and get out the amount of money that I'm going to make or lose, right? And I could create a table of values and I'd have maybe 20 values in my table of values. I'm going to see that there's a maximum amount of revenue. That's an option. It's not the best option, right? I kind of like, it's somewhat satisfying to do the algebra and just get one answer and then it's like it's good, right? Like, I don't know if it's as satisfying to sit there and plug in things 20 times. So this is asking me about the maximum revenue. That's what the car club cares about, right? So remember what I said about this. This is like the sticky piece, right? I don't care. So if I factor out the 200 out of the beginning, or the negative 200 out of all three of these, I'm just going to put it back at the end. So remember what we said about this. Just throw it away to the very end. It doesn't affect anything. We're just going to throw it away, and we'll deal with it later, right? So I'm only going to factor out of the first two terms, right? So revenue, I'm just going to start writing our negative 200, right? That 10x. Okay. Now, that's step one. Factor out the number up front, right? Step two is z. Z is going to be negative 10 divided by 2 squared, which is negative 5 squared, which is equal to 25. So my revenue is going to be negative 200 x squared minus 10x plus 25 minus 25 plus 120, right? First three terms, these guys here, they condense. I need two numbers. If I were to factor that, I need two numbers to multiply to 25 and add to negative 10. That's negative 5 and negative 5, which we read from right there, right? Which is what I was getting at with the factoring thing, right? So then R, write equal signs, I guess. It's negative 200 multiplied by x minus 5 squared minus 25. Then the last step is to put the 200 in. Sorry. What's 25 times 200? $55,500. Is that right?
Where did you get the 125 plus minus? I mean,
I think it's 25. It's 25 minus 25.
where did that
But
come
where
from?
did it come from? That's
The Z value.
Oh. That makes sense.
Where did the
But-
minus 10x come
The minus 10x came from after I factored out the 200
Okay.
from 2000.
So you divide, divide everything by minus 200, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So the 2000, that should be 10, right? Negative 10. Okay. Because remember, this process doesn't work if there's a number in front of x squared. You have to get rid of it. Okay. Right? Did we do the math on what's 25 times 200? Was I right? What is it?
5,000.
Oh, okay.
That was 25.
S-
Or, wait. No, it was 12,500.
Is it?
25.
Was I not even close? Wasn't even close. I got 5,000.
Yeah.
I guess.
25,500.
No, 25 times 200. Out front, the 200. So it's plus 5,000, right? And now the square brackets are gone. This is a perfect example of why I have the square brackets there, right? So it separates the outside number from the inside, so it doesn't get mixed up. You don't multiply it by whatever, right? It's just floating. That's why I put the square brackets there, right? So then I get 5,000 plus 120,000, and then I get a final answer for a maximum revenue, right? I could say, okay, here's my max revenue, because we're in vertex form now, right? It's negative 200 x minus 5 squared, and then it's 125,000, right? So now I could say, okay, my vertex is at 5 and 120, right? So now our job is to figure, like, what does that mean? So it means that, like, sorry. It means my maximum revenue is $125,000, right? But what's the other piece of the vertex? Yeah, Hector.
Like what the 5 is?
Yeah.
How many times you can add $20 to the total before you start losing money.
Right. So it's like X is along the x-axis, which we said if we look at our let statement, let X represent the number of price increase or decrease, which means I had 5 $20 increases, which means I increased the price $100, right? So it's 5 $20 increases, which equals $100, right? But how much was it originally? It was $400, which means 400, the original 400 plus another $100 takes us to $500 to be in this car club. But that's what maximizes their revenue. So when they charge $500, they have a maximum revenue and that's it. Seems like a lot, but really, like, it's a couple processes. Like, the hard part is these equations here, right? Which, when we're dealing with maximum revenue, right? Or what would be the opposite of maximum revenue? If you were a business, what would be like? Obviously, you're trying to maximize revenue, but what would be the opposite of that? Minimizing costs, right? So they could probably have, if they looked at like a vendor, like a Golf Town, I'm sure Golf Town has like between their shipping costs and like what they're paying for the products, they probably have a minimum that they can pay for stuff, right? And they've probably figured that out. And they figured that out by like, okay, if I pay this for shipping and I pay this for merchandising and like paying somebody to, like, they figured out a whole series of equations, like factors that are attributing to the cost of the item. And then they've done the research to figure out what their minimum, like then they're selectively picking which shipping company to go with for stuff like that, right? To minimize their costs, to get the product into the store so that they can maximize their revenue. Does that make sense? So a lot of this comes down to like, if you do go into business, I'm sure they'll come up with ways or to show you how to do the research around figuring out some of this data so that you can do the math on it to ultimately answer, how do I maximize my like revenue, right? Because you don't want to do things just, if you're not going to maximize what you're doing, like, what's the point, right? You're going to make some money, but not your full potential. Right? Make sense? It looks like a lot, but it's not bad.